Welcome everyone, this is Andres Restart, and this time we are talking about the latest news coming from the president of Nintendo, Shuntaro Furukawa, in an interview conducted by Nikkei about the future of the Nintendo Switch and what may be coming beyond. We've gotten a few little details here that, while subtle, are giving us a good understanding of what's happening next year. And the way I see it, this is great news for Switch owners who aren't ready to move on and for those that are ready to move on. Both. And that's what we're talking about today. But before going forward, let me point out that we are aiming to reach 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So if you do enjoy my content, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. With your help, it just might be possible. So here I have this article from Video Games Chronicle, one of the most reputable gaming news sites there are. And there's a few different things to extrapolate here. But I think a lot of people are going to be looking at this early paragraph and taking that and misinterpreting it. It's definitely a place where confirmation bias will be rampant for a lot of people. So let's just check that part out first. I'll explain why, and then we'll get into the actual translation. So here, Furukawa replied that Nintendo would continue to focus on the Switch until the end of current fiscal year ending March 2024, and will continue to support the console with software in the following fiscal year ending March 2025. So the reason why this paragraph has, I think, been taken a little bit out of context is because in the first part they say Nintendo will continue to focus on the Switch until the end of the current fiscal year ending in March 2024. And this checks out. We know about games coming from Nintendo, published titles, until March of next year. We got another Code Recollection in January, Mario vs. Donkey Kong in February, and Princess Peach Showtime in March. Nintendo has outlined the beginning of their 2024 lineup as of the recent Nintendo Direct. But it's this next part where I think people may be jumping to some conclusions. And will continue to support the console with software in the following fiscal year. So support as opposed to focus. So focus in this current fiscal year and support in the next fiscal year. So I think people are seeing this little paragraph here and running with it. But I don't think this is the actual translation from the interview. This is simply the summation on Video Games Chronicle. Then they have their own perspective on what's going on. I do agree with what's going on, but it's still technically not what's being said. These are the actual quotes that have been translated. We are still working on software for the Switch for the fiscal year ending March 31, 2025. So what this means is that after March of next year, after that month where we get Princess Peach Showtime, that following year, there are still Switch games coming. So for those that are worried that because Nintendo Switch 2 may be around the corner, that this somehow means that Switch won't be supported, that is not the case. And in all the videos that I've been talking about with Switch 2, I've always tried to make it clear that based off how Nintendo handled the transition from 3DS to Switch, I think we should expect a couple years of support of the Switch even after Switch 2 comes out. So there will still be games coming that are new, published by Nintendo for a little while after Switch 2 releases, which a lot of us are expecting is sometime next year. And at the very least, this one line here clarifies that at least until March 2025, there will be new published Nintendo titles coming out on the system. That seems to be the strong implication here. But there's more. In the fiscal year ending March 31, 2024, we hope to sustain the momentum of Zelda and the Super Mario Bros. Movie with focus on holiday sales season. As for hardware, we will maximize not only new demand for the hardware, but also for those buying second consoles and replacements. So this line here, you may look at it and be like, well, isn't that obvious? Nintendo's already announced their games for these coming months. Yes, that part would be obvious. But I would say, where they say they hope to sustain the momentum of Zelda and the Mario movie, that is actually quite interesting. Because we know about Mario Wonder coming out in just a few weeks. We have Mario RPG coming out in November. We have Mario vs. Donkey Kong in February and Princess Peach Showtime in March, and also we have Luigi's Mansion 2 and Paper Mario Thousand Year Door coming out later into the next fiscal year. And so the argument I've been making, and I think a lot of people also agree with this, is that Nintendo's using a lot of these games to take advantage of the boosted popularity of the Mario movie. And here we kind of have it in writing, or in quotes, that yeah, Nintendo is still trying to sustain that momentum. The same also applies for Zelda, which is interesting. We do know that we are getting the Tears of the Kingdom amiibo for Princess Zelda and Ganondorf soon, so that makes sense. They're doing something with that. There's no DLC plans though, but still, they plan on pushing both these things, which are pretty major, sustaining the momentum, and having a strong holiday season. There isn't really anything here that's outright stating that Switch 2 is coming out next year. And the fact of the matter is, at this stage, Nintendo is not going to clearly state what is happening next year. But there is no confirmation that it won't be coming out next year. And that alone, I would say, is significant. Because in prior years, Nintendo has confirmed that there wouldn't be a system or some sort of new hardware for a particular fiscal year. Now, they could still confirm that there won't be anything coming later on. This is just an interview, it's not a fiscal earnings report. But I would say that's fairly unlikely. We've heard several reports about dev kits being out there. We've heard several reports about tech demos at Gamescom. We've had several reports about Switch 2 just straight up coming out sometime next year. And when you look at the games lineup for Switch currently, I've made this argument many a time and I'm making it again. It's very reminiscent for how Nintendo transitioned from 3DS to Switch. A significant amount of the games were some type of remake or remaster, and others were just basically like Pokemon and Yokai Watch. Like, that was the bulk of the Nintendo content on 3DS for the last 3 years of the system. So yes, Nintendo will continue to support the Switch for a little while to come, but I'm not expecting for all of their big brand new major releases to be releasing on the Switch moving forward. There will be some. For example, I expect Metroid Prime 4 to be a cross-generation title. I think that's going to be made available for Switch owners because it was initially promised to Switch owners. But I also think at this stage it's very likely going to be something that's improved for Switch 2 as well. And there may be a few other titles like Prime 4 that will be announced that will come out for both Switch 2 and Switch 1. But this rumored big brand new 3D Mario game that's supposed to launch with the system, or at least release early on in its life cycle, that, I think, is probably a Switch 2 exclusive. But between Mario Wonder, Mario RPG, Princess Peach Showtime, Mario vs. Donkey Kong, Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, and Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, all coming out between now and the end of next year, and likely more to be announced in the not-so-distant future, I think Switch owners fans of Mario will be doing pretty well. Really, I think the biggest takeaway here is that while I've expected that Switch would be supported for a little while to come, here we have confirmation the Switch will still continue to get support. And this is not a sign that Switch 2 is not coming. It's simply a sign that Switch will still be supported. And I think where there's been a bit of a debate is that some people think that based off how Nintendo's handled prior generations where Nintendo just doesn't support their system for about a year or so before they release the next new one, that is not the Nintendo of today, especially now that they're focusing on a single platform. Back in the day, they had home consoles and handhelds they had to support at the same time. Now it's just one platform. And now Nintendo has really improved their flow of development, and they have consistent releases coming out throughout the year, every single year. They maintain momentum. Even here, they talk about sustaining momentum from Zelda and the Mario movie going into the holidays. For those waiting for there to be some type of drought before Switch 2 is getting announced or coming out, that's not going to happen. Nintendo will continue to release games consistently, and today with this interview, this strongly supports that. If you're waiting for some official words from Nintendo, here we have Nintendo telling us that even going into 2025, there will still be support for Nintendo Switch, and by that point, we expect Switch 2 will already be out. Strongly suggesting that, yes, games are coming on Switch, leading up to Switch 2 and beyond. But what do you make of this news? Is there any takeaways that I didn't mention here? Let me know in the comments below. This is Andres Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.